Haxorus debuted in the Generation 5 games, where it quickly became a fan favorite. Haxorus has the vibe of a pseudo-legendary, despite not technically being one. Pseudo-legendaries need to have a base stat total of 600, while Haxorus only has a 540 base stat total. But when this guy first came out, many assumed that it was the new pseudo-legendary. It was initially more popular than the actual pseudo-legendary Hydreigon. In the Pokemon Black and White metagame, Haxorus had a fantastic initial performance as a staple of the OU format. Physical dragon types felt better than ever, and Haxorus, with its monstrous 147 base attack and the excellent ability Mold Breaker, bypassing enemy abilities completely, Haxorus was a force to be reckoned with. This Pokemon could infamously click Outrage, ignoring whatever was in front of it, whether they resisted or not. For most players at the time, Haxorus seemed like it would become a new OU mainstay, potentially for the remainder of the franchise. A world where Haxorus is not viable seemed out of the question. But right around the corner, disaster was looming for this exciting new dragon type that seemed so promising. Black and White 2 released, and with it came the addition of an all-new dragon type wallbreaker, Kyurem-Black, a Pokemon that managed to survive in OU. Most boxed legendaries are relegated to the Ubers tier, but back in the day Smogon believed that Kyurem-Black, held back by its ice typing, was a manageable presence. Kyurem-Black became the new go-to dragon type wallbreaker with its even higher base 170 attack, which to this day is a ridiculous attack number. Kyurem-Black even had the ability Terra Volt, which has the same effect as Mold Breaker. This Pokemon completely outclassed Haxorus in every way, and the former king of dragon-type wall breakers was now rarely ever used on competitive teams. The years would not be kind to Haxorus, and this 15 minutes of fame being a top tier for a very brief period would be the peak of this unfortunate Pokemon's career. How did things go wrong for this Pokemon that was supposed to be the new superstar dragon type? Let's take a look at Haxorus throughout the years in competitive Pokemon. Subscribe to the channel for your own self-interest. Thank you. While Haxorus was at its best in the initial Gen 5 OU metagame, it was not without competition. As I said before, Generation 5 was the peak of power for dragon types, and some of the older dragon types of the franchise were giving Haxorus a run for its money. Dragonite now had multi-scale, one of the best abilities in the entire game. Incoming damage is reduced by half if Dragonite is at full health, giving it a safety net and a free turn to set up Dragon Dance or get an attack in the books. Garchomp is also one of the most powerful dragon types available in Gen 5 OU. With a ground typing, it has access to Stab Earthquake, which is fantastic to threaten steel types. Its attack is impressive with base 130, it has a more well-distributed stat line, and a base speed stat of above 100 is also noteworthy. Garchomp is an incredibly versatile Pokemon that tends to fit on teams very easily. It has access to Stealth Rock, the most important hazard in the game, a vast move pool, and even mixed coverage options that are very good. There was also Salamence, who now had the ability Moxie. Moxie will grant an attack boost if you earn a KO, allowing Salamence to snowball out of control very quickly and be a fantastic late game cleaner. But despite all of this competition, Haxorus outdid many of these dragon types in immediate power. It had a higher attack stat than all of them, and Mold Breaker allowed Haxorus to bypass enemy abilities, which was especially good against Levitate users like Rotom Wash. But as previously stated, when Black and White 2 released, Kyurem-Black burst onto the scene and became the new premier option for an immediately threatening dragon type, with many of the same traits Haxorus possessed, but higher attack and superior bulk as well. So in the current Gen 5 OU metagame with Kyurem-Black present, is Haxorus worthwhile still? Does it ever do anything? Haxorus can set itself apart from Kyurem-Black in a couple ways. Haxorus at least does not have an ice typing. Ice typing has a lot of defensive drawbacks, especially because it makes you vulnerable to Stealth Rock. The fact that Haxorus is not weak to Stealth Rock and not weak to fighting or steel type attacks is pretty nice. Haxorus also has access to some moveset options that Kyurem-Black does not. Haxorus has Dragon Dance in Generation 5, unlike Kyurem-Black. Haxorus does not have the best speed tier for a Dragon Dancer though. It's also a little bit frail, so it's sometimes hard to find the turn to set up Dragon Dance, but this is still a unique set of traits. As a high attack Mold Breaker dragon type with Dragon Dance, nothing else can do this in Gen 5. After a Dragon Dance, you do not outrun enemy choice Scarf dragon types such as Latios, Garchomp, and Salamence. but you can outrun much of the other threats in the metagame and deal with them quite well. Haxorus also has access to Superpower, which is a very good coverage option that Kyurem-Black doesn't get. Notably, this is able to threaten Ferrothorn, one of the most common switch-ins to dragon types. Haxorus is actually in a pretty good position if Ferrothorn switches in against it and it has a Dragon Dance boost. They're probably forced to Thunder Wave here if they have it, but if you have a Lumberry equipped, you can even withstand that. Haxorus also has access to Dual Chop. This may not seem like much. This is a simple Dragon-type physical attack that hits twice with 40 base power on each hit, but this is a pretty nice option in Generation 5 where Alakazam is a popular metagame presence. Alakazam commonly runs a Focus Sash to abuse Magic Guard and always get an extra turn for one extra attack. Since Alakazam ignores all hazard damage and residual damage with Magic Guard, it can preserve its Focus Sash extremely reliably. But Dual Chop will hit twice, so it will break the Focus Sash on the first hit and KO Alakazam unexpectedly with the second hit. Sometimes Focus Sash Alakazam is used as a check to threats like Haxorus because the Focus Sash allows Alakazam to survive a hit and strike back. So Dual Chop is a pretty fantastic option here. In the current Gen 5 metagame though, Haxorus is nowhere near its initial power level, and it is a fringe choice at best, mostly outclassed by every other dragon type available in the metagame. And later in the franchise, Haxorus would remain unimpressive, unfortunately. In Generation 6, the Fairy type was introduced as a way to counteract how powerful dragon types were becoming. Fairy type is completely immune to dragon type and also hits dragons super effectively. This was a blanket nerf to all dragon types, obviously, and the dragon types that remained viable in OU usually had some traits to help them counteract this, whether that be coverage for fairy types or just inherently strong traits that can progress your game plan forward without relying so heavily on just spamming outrage like you used to be able to do. Dragonite remained a powerful Pokemon because of the inherent strength of multi-scale and the Pokemon's wide move pool. Garchomp still had access to Stealth Rock and it could rely on Earthquake for big damage. Even Kyurem-Black remained quite viable. It could use Iron Head to super effectively hit fairy types coming in. Mega Charizard X also had the Dragon Fire typing, which is neutral to fairy instead of weak to it. Haxorus felt like it was kind of left behind here, without any of those exciting traits. This is a simpler dragon type that is kind of just clicking outrage. Haxorus does get access to Poison Jab, which can threaten fairy types super effectively, but Kyurem-Black is still making Haxorus look undesirable in Generation 6 OU. Kyurem-Black is still more immediately threatening, and it has the same ability ignoring effect. In Gen 7 OU, you could take advantage of Z moves to not only maintain your Dragon Dance attack boost against unaware Pokemon, but hit them significantly hard, enabling a sweep. But Haxorus still has the issue of frailty and difficulty finding a turn to set up Dragon Dance. In Generations 6 and 7, Haxorus is ranked in the UU tier, a slightly embarrassing ranking for what was once thought to be Pokemon's exciting new top tier dragon type. And in Gen 8, Haxorus is not even viable in UU anymore, with an RUBL ranking. In Generation 9, Haxorus feels a bit more promising than it has in quite a long time though. While it is not ranked in OU, I think it has some value in the OU tier and some potential. First of all, the long-standing rival of Haxorus, Kyurem-Black, is now banned to Ubers since Generation 8, as it received Dragon Dance in this generation, pushing it over the edge into brokenness. So Haxorus is no longer outclassed by Kyurem-Black in OU at least. Another point in Haxorus's favor is that unaware Pokemon are more common than ever in Generation 9, with Dondozo being a new addition to the game, one of the most powerful unaware physical walls we've ever seen. Skeledirge is another new one, Clodsire is here, and even the older unaware walls of Quagsire and Clefable still see use occasionally. Haxorus also got the new option of Scale Shot in Generation 8, but this is better abused in Generation 9 thanks to the Loaded Dice item. Scale Shot is a Dragon-type multi-hit move that hits 2 to 5 times. After being used, it will lower your defense by 1, but raise your speed by 1 as well. With the Loaded Dice item, Scale Shot will always hit at least 4 times, and it is a fantastic way to deal a lot of damage with a multi-hit move and raise your speed at the same time. Scale Shot works very well alongside Swords Dance. Swords Dance will accelerate your attack faster than Dragon Dance can, and Scale Shot will provide you with the speed needed to sweep and snowball. Terastallization is a mechanic that also benefits Haxorus, finally allowing it a little bit more breathing room when it comes to finding setup turns. Terastallizing into the Steel type is a great option for Haxorus, providing it fairy resistance and toxic immunity, as well as dragon resistance. This covers all of Haxorus's previous weaknesses and can be a great way to spend your 1 per game terror, sometimes even ending the game if you can get that swords dance in there. Many of the previous heavy hitters when it comes to dragon type wall breakers like Gouging Fire and Baxcalibur are now banned. With much of the competition getting eliminated, maybe Haxorus will rise to prominence once again. We can only hope. I don't think that Haxorus will see enough usage to ever be ranked OU again, but I think that this is actually a pretty underrated set of traits for the Gen 9 OU metagame with some real potential on the right teams. It's certainly the most viable Haxorus has been in a long time. Haxorus is a pretty simple Pokemon design when you think about it. A physical attacking dragon type with just a mono dragon typing. It has one job, and at a point in time it did that job well. Haxorus was unfortunately caught in the crossfire of many metagame shifts and mechanical changes over the years that have not been kind to it. Maybe in Generation 10, Haxorus will receive some new buffs or changes that help it keep up and return to the top tier status it once held.